Hi, my name is Michelle Patient and welcome to Roots Tech Connect 2022 and my talk on messaging your DNA matches. So I'm going to share with you my tips and hints from my experience of messaging with people over the years and the questions I've asked some of the DNA testing providers about what the customers are after and how best to communicate with them. So over the years, I've sent quite a few messages and initially wasn't always getting the answers I wanted, so it made me ask more questions. But the first question really is, why have we done DNA testing? And most of us have a goal around our family history research. DNA isn't just some fun new tool, though. It's actually another piece of genealogy evidence that impacts a number of people, not just the person who did the DNA testing. So it's quite important to think and plan and act before you actually send messages out. Sometimes you might not need to message them at all. So let's treat it like every other family history record. We need to think about the who and the how and the what and the where and the when and the why to get the most out of our messaging that we send out. And sometimes we may decide we don't need to send a message. So one of the things you need to do is to think about, what do you hope to achieve? Do you just want to find out more information? Are you wanting to research together? In other words, collaborate, as some people call it. Are you wanting more than that and you want to build an actual relationship with someone? Are you just replying to a query and you're quite not sure how much information to share? Are you wanting to break through a brick wall when you contact this match, or solve some recent unknown biology, or ask them something quite personal like, could you upload elsewhere? Or are you asking people you've never met before to test? Now, personally, I'd never ask people to do a DNA test until I've actually built some sort of relationship up with them first, have some cultural understanding about what it means to them and their community, but also to be able to cover all the ethical possibilities before launching in and asking them to just do a test cold. The other thing that's important is to know who's actually already in those databases. Who are the people testing? And back in 2017, when I was asking the people at Birmingham, who do you think you are live, the website companies were telling me that a lot of the people testing were in their 30-ish range, their 20s to 40s. That the vast majority only ever use a mobile device on their platform. And at that point, it was over 60%. So do think of people only using a small screen, and that if you send a really long message, it's going to have scrolled off the top of the screen before they get to the end. So think about the shortness of your message. Many people testing haven't done any research yet. They're just curious about their roots. But a big percentage of people, once they see their family history DNA test results, ask the question, but who gave these to me? And you can have a role in that by the way you message people and ask them questions. The other thing, to bear in mind is, how often do people research? Well, funnily enough, most people only research less than once a week. And you may be watching this and going, I do it every day. So you may be surprised to know that people who do it quite regularly, like daily or multiple times a week, are not the majority. Most people only research occasionally, and some, it might find it hard to believe, they only check or do research once a year on the holidays. There are people who don't research over the spring and the summer because that's the time they want to be outdoors. So there's lots of personal reasons why people aren't like you. So one of the first things you need to think about before you plan out your email is, are they new or an existing user? Now, as a scientist, I need to make sure I just remind you of the research process we should be doing. So it's really important to gather all the evidence that you can find about your DNA match, and then see what can you work out from that. Are they new? Are they existing? Can you work out how they fit in the tree already? So will your email then be about what you can share with them rather than asking, how do you fit in? So when you come to all a conclusion, you may even decide that you have everything you need. You're not actually actively working on this branch at the moment. You may conclude, I don't need to message them. If you do decide to message them, based on the evidence you've gathered and the conclusions you've drawn, make sure you draw up an email or message that's of the right tone, has the right type of questions targeted at the person you want to talk with. And then sometimes you should sleep on these things and review them. Just make sure you've checked the pros and cons, and really are you managing to be effective with tone and content. So what is some of that evidence you can find? Well, you can find their username and their profile, their age, their gender, their length of time researching, locations, surnames, interests. You can tell the shared DNA match group or cluster they belong to, which will indicate the side of your family. For some people, you can go out onto the World Wide Web, search about and find their current addresses and phone numbers. And for some people, that's their preferred means of contact. But many people have no trees at all. And have you thought about why that might be? Well, most of the reasons for no trees is they've just started. They just have an interest. And some people don't realise they can build trees on all the major websites for free. So they don't have an online tree because they just can't afford a subscription at the moment. But guess what? You can build them for free. Many people, as I said, are only interested in ethnicity and aren't going to convert over. But that's probably only a quarter of the people at this point in time. So for those of you that are a bit older than the rest of the audience, you might be thinking, I can remember there was a time when I didn't have time. I had a family life and work and lots of other commitments. So there's not always the time to do this work. Then there's a significant number of people who are adopted or fostered or donor conceived or abandoned. And they might not have a tree because they just don't know, but they also might not have a tree because they've been rejected in the past and they're very cautious about being rejected again. And again, you may be surprised to know some people just aren't researching at present and choose never to have anything online because they don't want to be contacted because they're not currently doing family history research. Others only have an offline tree. For some reason or other, they've decided not to be digital, or they're just still learning about that. And then, as you should be able to imagine, some people testing have grandparents who are all living, or even great-grandparents. And so everyone in their tree are living, and they've chosen not to put that information out in the public domain. Then, of course, you get other trees that are secret or locked. And there are similar reasons for those. But many people doing in-depth DNA research will often build DNA match, what are called often quick and dirty trees, in private, unsearchable trees, so you won't be able to see them because they don't want to be making mistakes and sharing errors as they experiment with trying to work out how DNA matches fit in. So when you take all this into account, then you've got some things to think about. Do you still need to send that message or don't you? And what sort of message do you need to send? Are there some ethical things to be mindful of here? Because you may have revealed an unexpected biological connection. And so you need to take that with more care. Sometimes you can find out everything you need to know. So you can look for the smoking guns and not give up by just looking at the one line on the website and go, I can't work this out. So dig for clues in their website, their profile, their shared matches. Make sure you scroll down and read the whole screen. Always question what information is there. So have they linked to the right place in the tree? I've certainly seen plenty that are linked to people born before DNA testing was available. I've seen some where they've been linked to the wrong gender. I've seen some where they're not even linked to a branch that seems to make any sense. So always double check those things. And then search for trees elsewhere, not just on the website where the test is. Make sure you go out and check Family Search and find My Past and My Heritage. And tribal pages, I've given you a long list in the handout. And remember to search laterally out at non-genealogy sites. People often use the same username at many locations or as part of an email address. And again, in the handout, there's quite a few tips about that. But sometimes the websites update and you just forget where to look for things. So just remember the trees on the newer version of Family Tree DNA are showing on the right now, not the left. They're not blue anymore. They're this lovely grey colour, light grey when there's no tree and dark grey when there is. And when you need to know more details now, some of that information used to be showing in the DNA match list. Now you need to actually click on the username to find the email address and some of that other information. So that's about that digging and drilling deeper. But a locked tree doesn't always mean there's no tree at all, and you'll be surprised how often people have more than one tree on a website. So here's an example of my cousin TR. And when I clicked on her username and went through, I found a number of locked trees. So I found a lot of clues here and evidence to help me work out where she fitted in. So not only do I have an idea of her age, where she was living, how long she's been researching, the kind of things she's interested in, both surnames and locations, on the right-hand side, she actually had an unlinked tree, which helped quite a lot. But the classic was she was linked to a tree I could now see the name of was Herbert and Day family. And I already had, because I'd built a wide tree of all my family descendants, I had a Herbert Day connection. So I was being able to work out myself how she fitted in. Now let's have a look at some of those private trees. Sometimes it's not as challenging as you might think. So here's an example of someone that matches me at MyHeritage, and I can see in their tree that they actually have 12 people, not just the handful on the screen. So if I went to the right-hand side, I could look at the list view and see all the people. And most sites have a list view that you can use. And when I do that, I find a group of surnames, which meant that I could go through and research them all and work out how she fitted in. So I went off and did normal family history and could easily build her tree myself. And again, get back in that drill deeper and scroll down mode. Here's an ancestry result where literally this is the screenshot. It said maternal family tree. This person was only keeping one branch of their tree online. There were no others showing at that username. And all I had was a full name, and the place England was there under their death location. So do use the search function on the website that you're using. So I went and clicked on the tree here, and when I clicked on it and pressed the search facility and scrolled down to a long list, I actually found her and her full details in another tree. And when I dug even deeper, then I found further details about her and could build the branches of the tree to work out our relationship. And another reminder about questioning the trees. Generally, our family history standard when we're building trees in a chart is that we have the maternal side on the right and the paternal side on the left. In other words, males on the left, females on the right. At 23andMe, the match is on the right-hand side of the tree. So here's myself and a match on my father's side, and you'll see my father's on the right-hand side above me. And then the match goes through my father's mother and so on through her mother, and you'll see the sides are changing. And so don't assume that when you see a suggested hint at 23andMe, that the genders are located in the places you're used to. You need to do the research. And in case you hadn't noticed, over at Ancestry, they use colours to show the male and female if people haven't put up a photograph. And this is a scientific term, not a cultural or social term. It is purely based on the 23rd pair of your chromosomes. And just to show you another example that people don't always have the DNA linked to the correct place in the tree, my mum's adopted, and I have her permission to show her tree here. And this is the family we grew up with. And so when I'm working on that branch of the family, I set them as my preferred branch of the family. So it pays to double check by drilling through to any matches profile page and seeing if you see this telltale additional parent relationship. Me as the user of this tree, I can edit and add relationships under that edit preferences option top right. So now we're finally going to write an email. How is this person going to react? Have we made sure we've put a call to respond? If we encourage them to answer us, I always put the question towards the bottom of my message. Will they be curious to know more? Will they feel overwhelmed if I said too much, if I said the wrong things? Are they going to feel they have nothing to offer? And how welcoming is your profile? So wherever you've tested, make sure your profile has some information to make people feel you're not some crazy person out there on the internet. And then try and make contact as soon as you can after they arrive. If they're very close, large numbers of centimorgans are well worth getting in touch with as quickly as you can before they've closed the lid and decided, oh, well, I found out my ethnicity, or, oh dear, there's a lot to learn here and I don't have time. Make sure you always message through the match page so that they get the right link back. And what are you going to include in there? Well, design a message based on all the things we've talked about already. And what can you share about yourself so that you're not a taker, you're a giver as well. Make it brief, specific, offer personal info, and be helpful. Include your Facebook address so they can check you out. And then wait. So here's an example of a message to a younger person that was not building a tree, and I sent it in 2020. And you'll notice I only asked the question about, could you tell me the names of your grandparents so I could work it out? And so you can use this as a draft if you want. But just note, it took over 12 months for the answer, but it unlocked a whole branch of my tree. And here's a message to somebody who'd been researching for longer, and you'll see I've given a bit more personal info. And again, they replied within 24 hours with the information I needed. So folks, make sure you have a goal in mind, formulate a question. Are they new or experienced? Plan the approach that's best to take. And is the question you want to ask the best first approach? This is a short version of a much longer presentation. So if you want to hear more from me, you can find me at these locations. And I'd like to especially thank Roots Tech for the opportunity to speak today. All the best.